You might have seen my video of this build yesterday where I got to Torment 4. Now one day later, we're clearing high 80s. So I wanted to put out another video to give you guys updated information on what I figured out. Now when I theory crafted this build a couple of months ago, I used the obvious choice, which was SEPAZONTEC. And my Twitch chat keeps asking me, hey Screamheart, why aren't you using SEPAZONTEC like all of the big content creators? Well, if you look at the item, the only thing that we're actually gaining as a benefit if we use SEPAZONTEC is the dex and the ability to endlessly dash. But with the setup that I'm doing, we have the ability to endlessly dash, and we're not giving up a two-handed weapon temper, we're not giving up a two-handed offensive temper, and we're not giving up a two-handed aspect. So we could go with SEPAZONTEC, but we're going to be multiple times weaker than we are with this. Now you can use SEPAZONTEC if you're doing easy content and you just want to fly through it. A good example of this might be going and carrying your friend in a lower torment. But if you're actually trying to compete in the endgame, you definitely don't want to use SEPAZONTEC. Now I was asked how you level up with this build, and it's extremely easy, so let me show you. First off, I'm going to take off anything that actually makes the build better, so that you can see how this functions. Alright, so now you see the basics of what we need. First off, we need boots that have attacks, reduce, evades, cooldown, which you can easily get. You obviously have to have a weapon equipped to do damage. You need the Eagle main Spirit Hall, which you can get at level 15. And the final piece of the puzzle, you're going to need Thunder Spike with accelerated Thunder Spike. Now, if you have all of these things, and actually to be fair, let me pull out the extra evades here. Now that we have these things, this is all you have to do. You're going to hold down your basic attack and your shift, and you're going to spam your evade and die instantly. I forgot I'm in Torment 4 and I just took off all my gear. I'm going to put on some non-essentials real quick. Alright, these will increase my damage, but they're not going to actually change the functionality of the build. Okay, so let's do that again. So we are dashing and basic attacking to reset our dash. And you can see that the feathers are consistently flying out, and even without all the other gear, I'm doing some damage, even though I'm not doing nearly as much damage as I would do with an optimized setup. Now obviously once you get a little bit further along, you're going to be able to put passives into acceleration, and that's going to drastically improve your quality of life with the build. Let me show you what it looks like now. So you can see, now we have those additional evades. It gives us a little bit of an extra burst. So say we're running between packs of enemies, now we've got multiple evades, and boom. So that's when the build really starts coming online, but you'll be surprised at how strong it is early on with just those other three basic things. Now obviously as soon as you get it, you're going to want to put on your exhilaration. This is going to change the build into an amazing build. Alternatively, if you get it first, you can go SEPAZONTEC, and SEPAZONTEC is really nice in the early game. And even if you're running this build in the late game, you can keep a SEPAZONTEC on you, just so you can dash around faster. Sometimes when you're doing easier content, it's nice to have something that just allows you to dash without having to worry about the resets. But this alone will carry you really hard. And a little bit of a bonus tip, when you're doing your tempering in the early game, don't be afraid to temper on some additive damage instead of the Spirit Feather Potency. Spirit Feather Potency is obviously really strong, so maybe temper at least one on your two-hander, and then add additive damage onto your other pieces. That should make your damage early on go through the roof. But as you optimize towards the late game, you're going to want all Spirit Feather Potency. Unfortunately, I didn't find any better aspects, so I'm still using the same crappy ones that I had in the previous video. But I did make some general improvements on my gear, and I also decided between a couple of different things that I wasn't sure about. So let's see what I've got so far. We're still using Loyalty. I decided to run Jakink's Shell. This is reducing all of our cooldowns extremely quickly, and I was able to get my hands on Bulwark. So now that Rune Word is giving us a shell all the time, and we don't have to worry about survivability, despite the fact that we're losing health all the time. I still have a crappy 23% conceded on my gloves, but if you check the actual Mobalytics planner underneath the video, you might see here that I recommend Fist of Fate. I think the optimal setup is going to be Fist of Fate here, conceded over here where a curse touches, and then we'll change our Keystone passive to the one that gives us 50% dex. That should give us more overall in way of damage. But I haven't gotten Fist of Fate yet, so I still need to test that interaction. If you happen to do it yourself, feel free to let me know what you find out. For my pants, I'm still running Disobedience because I haven't hit my armor cap without this. However, if I get my gear optimized enough where I can get my max bonus from Unyielding without running Disobedience, then my plan here is to run 40% more damage to feared enemies, or Exploiter's Aspect. And for my boots, I'm still running one for the All Resist, And I actually tested Rakanoth's Wake versus Yen's Blessing, and there seems to be no real difference. However, Yen's Blessing is going to be more beneficial to people that aren't using the Jakinth Shell, because that chance to cast a skill is going to fill some of your downtime for Armored Hide. But for the raw stats, I prefer Rakanoth's Wake. For my weapon, I'm still using a crappy Redirected, but hopefully by the time I put out my next video for this, I'll have a better aspect here. And on the amulet, we're still using Unyielding, and I managed to roll a passive that actually gives me damage. So this amulet is actually pretty close to what I'd prefer. Basically, I want to go for total armor, dexterity, and a good passive. But it'd be perfectly fine to swap that dexterity for another good passive. The goal here is to just get as many damage multipliers as possible. And I still only have 38% out of 45% for my Unyielding, which means I need more armor to hit that maximum. But once I get the 45%, I won't have to worry about the armor as much, and it'll be easier to hit my other stats as well. Another change I made from the last video is I moved Exhilaration from my amulet down to my ring. My lucky hit chance here is still pretty low, but as long as you're running the Hunter as your ultimate, you actually have a great lucky hit chance here. And as I was testing, I decided that I liked the Hunter more than I liked Devourer. Technically, Devourer helps you get your Supremacy stacks easier, but you still get most of the stacks when you're using the Hunter, assuming you're actually killing enemies. And on top of that, you're getting a multiplier for damage to injured enemies, and you're getting the extra mobility and ferocity stacks. And for now, I'm still using a Cursed Touch here. I'm still using the double Eagle Hull, and in my skill tree, I moved around a couple of points, but nothing too crazy. Don't mind these vortex things, I was just doing some testing. Here we go, this is what it actually looks like. So we're maxing out these passives, getting our Ravager, maxing out some more passives. When you're using the Jakinth Shell, this one here is pretty important, because this is going to make sure you have barrier, even when your life is really low. We've got our maxed out Armored Hide, we've got our points in Concussive Stomp, we've got our points in Counterattack, our points in Scourge, and a change I made since last time is I actually put these points into the Gorilla passives here, because we're using Concussive Stomp enough that we can actually maintain this maximum life, and we're getting a chance to execute elites, which is really powerful, especially when you're on very hard elites. We're still maxing out these passives here, maxing out Potent, maxing out Resolution and Supremacy. And this is another reason why I like the Hunter, because we actually get really good uptime on Resolution. I have a point in Initiative just to give me a little bit extra Unstoppable, and then I'm still using Vital Strikes, but like I said, you can change to Adaptive Stances, assuming that you swap to the Fist of Fate setup. Now my Paragon boards in game are still a hot mess, so don't worry about these ones, but click on the link underneath the video, and you can see the full Paragon boards that I put together for this build. I'm waiting till I hit max level, and then I'm going to reconfigure my boards to that. Now I was able to test sapping, and I was triggering it when I was using my evade 3 times in a row. But it was hard for me to set up a case where I could hit with my Spirit Feathers and still see that this was happening. So I can't be 100% sure, but if you guys can figure out a way to test this accurately, feel free to let me know in the comments. For the other legendary nodes, we're using Drive, Viscous Shield, and Convergence. Now the good thing about using the Jakinth Shell is now we can spam all of our abilities. But that's also the bad news, because it hurts your fingers. But a little tip, you can hold down Armored Hide, Ravager, and Counterattack, and the only ones you actually have to press are the Hunter and Scourge. And of course Thunderspike if you ever need a reset. By the way, if you ever feel like you're running out of evades, it might be a gear issue, but it could also be a gameplay issue. If you kill enemies too quickly, you're not going to be able to get the resets for Exhilaration. So whenever you have a lull between waves of enemies, don't be afraid to hold shift and use Thunderspike a couple times without any enemies, and this will recharge and evade so you can continue dashing into the next wave of enemies. And of course, if you get a Channeling Shrine or the Invigorated buff in Infernal Hordes, you can just spam and you never have to worry about it. Now that's it for this video. I hope this was helpful for you guys, and let me know if you have any other questions related to this build, or to any of my builds in general. I've got a whole lot of builds on my Mobalytics page. Every single build for Druid, and several builds for Spiritborn already. So take a look at those. Like, comment, and subscribe to the channel. And I'll see you guys in my next video. Oh, and come by my Twitch stream. I'm probably live right now. Unless I'm sleeping. Alright, see you guys in the next one. I've got some potency for you.